Hey, welcome to the Continual Winemaker series here at Wine of the Month Club. We're here with Michelle. I didn't catch her last name.
Michelle McCue.
McCue with the Trebecchieri at the Gambero Rosso tasting, which is really fun to be at again. And here we are talking about French wines when we're at an Italian wine tasting. How brilliant is that?
Don't tell anyone.
But fascinating to hear her background. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other things. So you wanted to be a biomed, and that didn't last
for
very
about
long.
5 minutes.
And then you became a writer.
Yep.
So did you write for food?
I freelanced for a little while, but I think going back to sort of how I got where I am today, I grew up in the Coachella Valley, which is about 2 hours from here.
Wow.
Yes. And it was sort of
iceberg and lettuce and
at the intersection of agriculture and tourism.
Yes.
You know, the east end of the valley is all farms, lettuce, citrus, dates, etc. And then the other end is all kind of very high-end, you know, resort experiences. And in a weird way, wine sort of sits at that intersection because it's like,
wow, it's interesting, yeah.
It's where lifestyle meets agriculture.
Sure, right, which is what it is, you're
yeah.
right.
So it really was a natural fit for me when I started to kind of get into not just the wine as a product, but wine as a culture.
Which it is.
You know, yeah, absolutely.
It's my 30th year of doing this, and it's only recently, really, that you really, you know, the more you experience it, the more you understand, the more people you talk to, they're passionate about it, the more passion you get for it, right? So, but food is very passionate.
Sure.
I mean, you worked for a French chef. What was this?
Yeah. This was probably 20 years ago. Yeah.
In San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco. But it was, food people are a little different breed than wine people.
So my daughter's a baker in New York.
Yeah.
She works for a Michelin star chef named Jonathan Beno. And it's only that experiencing her career through him and the things that we've experienced together through wine have I come to realize the similarities in the sense of it takes passion to do both, but they do have different approaches. I mean, the cooking business is brutal, right?
Right, it's brutal, but also I think there's in some ways a lot more creativity in the food space. And now, I mean, food has become this completely other space than it was even 20 years ago. And I think a lot of that's due to social media. Now it's such a visual thing. You know,
taking pictures of your food, is that?
Taking pictures of your food. It's changed everything because if you're a restaurant, now you're making food for how it looks on the plate, not so much for how it tastes. Wine, we don't have that luxury or that problem. You know, wine looks the way it looks.
That's true, and what's interesting, when my daughter had graduated from SC, you can go cooking school, but you're going to graduate from college, so she ended up in Paris baking and all this sort of stuff. No. We went to see one of the schools, the one in Napa, and the guy plated some food, and my daughter goes, "That's so 80s." Right. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I don't think I would have caught that. I'd catch it now, but I wouldn't have caught it then, that food has evolved like that, and wine is, you know, you change the label, and that's, you know, but the character of the wine, there are some new world things, right? But the passion for wine is a little bit different than for food. So after you wrote, there were no blogs then, I suppose?
There were not.
Yeah?
No, but it was right when the industry was really starting to change. A lot of the standby magazines and newspapers were starting to really get hit by this whole internet thing. And so that meant fewer and fewer jobs for people like me who were just breaking into the industry as a journalist. So I quickly had to figure out something else to do. So I moved to Los Angeles and I started writing for an online retailer that specialized in kind of cookware and tabletop things.
Yeah, wow.
Sort of like a Williams-Sonoma.
Yeah.
So there was a whole food component to that, and I started a test kitchen with them, testing all these different products that we were selling, and then turning that into content for their website.
Content-driven marketing, I like it.
Yeah, so that's a lot of what we do now. I did that for a couple years, and then I got a retail job working at 2020 Wines here in LA.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, right.
Helping with all their website stuff and. Yeah.
So you've done the tech side of it too, so to speak, of the content side, which is, you know, drives everything. Have you been in that space lately? Just as a cyclist, I think it's the Wild West right now.
Well, I do marketing and PR for the wine industry.
Oh, you do?
So,
Okay, so
that's really the space where we live these days. We do a lot of work with the wine influencers,
it's craziness.
Yeah, in addition to wine media. And
In fact, that's what this whole podcast is about, because my industry, the DTC industry, I have to move into, and I have wonderful interviews from people all over the world as a podcast and as a YouTube channel, as we already have and all that. But it's going to differentiate what I do and how long I've been doing it compared to everybody else out there. And leading into this, you're here with these wonderful wines, all pedigreed, generations after generation. And there is that consumer exists, and they continue to grow, in my opinion. My club, we've now added some high-end clubs like Pinot Noir, Bordeaux, Rosé, and some others. But on the other side, there's this other business model that's come into this space. It's venture capitalized. Millions and millions of dollars are being poured into direct-to-consumer wines that are crap. I mean, they're by the model that they have to buy low and sell high. You are going to be, as a consumer, you're getting screwed. So they're bringing in €1 wines in 50,000-gallon bladders, bottling them under who knows how many labels, and selling them as $18 wines.
And it's all about marketing.
Yeah, and they're tired of it. The consumer's getting tired, and the venture capitalists are getting tired because they're not getting their money back. Because you can't buy a customer like that. You know how hard it is to get customer acquisition on the web, and then to stiff them with a bad wine, which is what they are. They're not coming back. Or if they're going to use your Groupon for $5 bottles and you're paying Groupon 25% of that already, and then you're into free shipping, you're not making any money anyway.
Right.
You hope they buy more. It's not happening anymore. It's moving towards this level, and this Trebecchieri, this book is amazing for that.
Yeah. I mean, those brands are not my clients.
No, of course not.
The kind of brands that I work with are the ones who are now moving. Okay, so even for the true wine connoisseur, whatever you want to call them, or even the folks that are, let's say, a couple of steps back from that, right? They're not looking anymore for just like the scores, right? It used to be all driven by
The flash sale sites still are,
Yes. And sure, retail, of course, scores are always going to be part of the retail game. But as things move more and more to a direct-to-consumer model, as you have all these different brands in the space that are, little brands.
Some are real.
They're having a hard time getting into distribution, though, because distributors have consolidated. There's less and less space in their portfolios,
That's true.
right? So if you're a small family-run brand, and I don't care if you're in Sonoma or the Finger Lakes or New Zealand, you're looking for how to cut out that middleman and get directly to the consumer.
That's exactly right.
The only way to do that is through differentiating your story. So it's all about how do you make a personal connection with the buyer. And it's either through like an actual person to person, or it's through how you're telling your story online, or it's through the experiences that you're creating for people to come and engage. But it is really all about that interpersonal connection.
And the web has created that requirement because, here's a good example of that. We went to Napa last week. I did some work, and then we had a couple days to play around. A friend of mine came up. They wanted us to go to Stone. I won't say the word so I don't disparage anybody. And they have a dinner house, and you can go rent the dinner house, and they bring in a chef, and everybody comes in. It's $150 a person. They do a 4-course meal. The food was great. The wines weren't so great. Okay, Sauvignon Blanc, Bordeaux blend, and a cab. And my friends wanted me to be honest. Now I taste 75 wines every Tuesday. I've been doing it for 30 years, so we sort of kind of get part of it, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what would you charge for this? I said, no flaws, wine's fine. I would charge $19. And they're like, but they want 45.
Right.
But the point that you made is that they pay the extra price not because they know they want to, but the experience of getting this house, having the chef take care of them, having a maitre d' there at their thing, that's what the experience is. So how do you do that online? I mean, that's not an easy thing to do.
Well, I mean, you're going to market differently at different stages of what we call, the sales funnel, right?
Funnel, sure,
so when you're trying to basically just inspire somebody to consider your brand, then that's when you're getting in front of them with story and trying to just draw them in. You
So
know,
that's what this is about.
Yep.
That's what
well,
this
this is different because this is trade. So
Right, well,
these
this is
are all
trade.
people who are coming here to make a deal.
Right.
You
Yeah, that's
know?
true. Well, that's why I came. But I mean, this podcast, the YouTube channels, in fact, I'm gonna hire a ghostwriter to write a story about my dad, because my dad was there in 1972. He invented this idea of putting wine in the mail. He knew Jim Barrett. He used to come by our house all the time, our store in Palos Verdes. Dave Stair from Dry Creek used to come in and deliver wines. Bruce Nyer from Nyer's Vineyards used to sell wine to my father as a sales manager.
Yep.
And so that's the story, though. That's the connection that you don't get from some guy bringing a bladder full of wine from France, right?
Or
so
from
I've been telling the story all day.
Central Valley.
Yeah, I've been telling the story all day. Steve's heard it like 6 times. I had a
And it's still fresh.
I had a wine writer in from the freelance writer from New York. She's writing an article on clubs in America, and she's going to run in the LA Times. And she noticed this congestion of what's going on. So she wanted to come. I said, come Tuesday. She spent 4 hours. Long story short, there was 2 cases of samples from one of these competitors. And I said, we're just going to taste a couple of these in between vendors. Pull one out, Beaujolais, 2016. I love Beaujolais if it's good Beaujolais. Okay?
Sure.
So she's, I love Beaujolais. I said, okay. So we open it. Horrible. Can't drink it. I mean, literally can't drink it. So, but I hadn't noticed, and I rolled the label over. It's SNL Beaujolais. It's Saturday Night Live.
Seriously?
Yes. It's
Wow.
Beaujolais. I'm like, some poor person bought this for like $18, thinking they have some fun with the Saturday Night Live brand, and it's bad, and who knows what Beaujolais is anyway.
Yeah, but if you're going to buy that, then you probably don't
You should
have that discerning of
That's
taste
probably right.
anyway.
That's probably
you
right.
know.
Okay, so when did you start with? We got off track. When did you start with Gambaro Rosso?
Gambaro Rosso I started with 4 years ago, and actually it's now like a part of my life because my husband and I met on the tour. He actually produces the show, and I do all of the outreach to the trade and media.
Wow.
So we met the very first day that I started working with Gambaro Rosso,
And that's exciting.
and then we got married
And then
3.5
wow,
years
this
later.
is a whole love story. It's a book in itself.
Yep.
This is great.
As our Italian client says, we're the Gambaro Rosso couple of the year.
Wow,
this
that's
year.
not the gentleman I interviewed, is it?
No.
Oh, okay, good. 'Cause
No,
he was
he's the guy running around putting ice under everybody's table
Oh.
and making sure everybody's happy.
on the important stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so you travel the world together doing
We
that?
do.
Oh, that's really
Yeah, we
exciting.
do.
And so no more writing, generally? Just
Not
content
so
creation?
much. Yeah, content creation and running a business. When I started this business, it was because I loved all the content creation.
Yes.
I love writing about, all these cool people that I meet and the brands that I come across.
Sure.
And I love doing video production and all these amazing things that now you get to do in the media space.
I know.
But as, I got more and more successful, now I'm just running a business.
Yeah, that's what it is. And it's not easy, is it?
Right.
Business is hard.
So now my staff get to do all the fun stuff.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just run around with
And
the
now
ideas.
I just run around and
Right.
sign checks and, hire and fire people. Not
So-
too much firing, but
Well, I just learned finally after all these years of business, slow to hire, quick to fire.
yeah, yeah.
Which is hard to do.
That is quick. That's the opposite of what I did in the beginning.
Yes,
I would
we all
meet
do
somebody
that.
that I liked and I thought, oh, you're so amazing.
We all do that.
Yeah.
And then you let them take advantage of you for a little while, then he goes on.
Right.
So this book is a phenomenal thing. Now, you produce this?
Well, I
The
don't
company
produce
does?
it. So
But you-
Gambaro Rosso is actually a media company in Italy, and they sort of say that they're like the Michelin Guide and Wine Spectator and Food Network all in one because
Yep.
they have a big TV presence, they have several magazines that they produce, and then they produce all of these different guides. This is really the only one that makes its way into the U.S., the Vini d'Italia, which is the Bible on Italian wines
It's
that
beautiful.
comes out every year. But it is really an extraordinary effort. They review some 45,000 wines each year, all Italian,
Phenomenal.
and the top 1%, so only 400 wines are awarded the Tre Bicchieri, which is
Right.
the 3-glass designation, and we're fortunate enough to have 100 of them here today.
So Mark Newman, who I've known for 20 years at least,
Yep.
was quick to tell me that he's been invited to taste, that be one of the 5 tasters at the end of next year.
Oh, okay.
Did you know that? Yeah.
No, I
This
didn't
is
know
big
that.
news today. We're going
He's-
around here. So.
He's quite.
Yeah, well, the man with the $1 million palate, as he calls
Yep.
himself for all these years. But that's a fascinating honor, and for five, ultimately 5 judges to produce this and come up with the final count is a lot of pressure as well.
It is a
And
lot
it's
of
hard to
pressure
do.
because you're making or breaking somebody's bottom line.
Yeah, it's hard to
essentially.
do.
Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating, and I hope we get to do this again. We're in Monrovia. I have a tasting room. There's always something to open. I've invited sommeliers to come and spend hours with me while I taste on Tuesdays to refine their palate. But you're always welcome to come by and see us. So you're in Los Angeles.
We're in beautiful downtown Burbank.
Oh, I was just there the other day. I was just there because I was invited by Adam Carolla.
Yes.
He's right off of Western Avenue
I
there.
run into him at this Indian restaurant all the time.
Oh, do you? Yeah. So they have a wine now called the Paul Newman 33.
Okay.
It's Cabernet. It's made by Bianchi Vineyards. And we're going to be working together. He's going to teach me this part of the business, podcasting and stuff, and I'm going to teach him about wine club business because apparently they have a small club. So pleasure meeting you, Michelle.
Pleasure
I
to
hope to see
speak with
you
you.
again and come by anytime. And thanks for just joining us. This is really fun.
Absolutely.